Hello, this is Michael J. Emery. I'm often asked what the difference is between coaching, therapy, and consulting. Coaching is typically an equal partnership relationship between a client and a coach. The coach is responsible for motivating and empowering the client to achieve their desired goals and outcomes. And coaching operates from the perspective that the client already has the resources inside of them. They just need to be brought to the surface. Therapy involves a relationship between a therapist and a patient in which the therapist is expected to diagnose problems and relieve the symptoms. And traditionally, a therapist is outside of the problem, and the relationship is set up so that the therapist has the resources that the patient needs. And lastly, consulting is a relationship in which an expert is brought in to give advice and tell others what to do based upon his or her experiences. So most traditional coaching models follow a process in which the coach listens to a client's problem, restates the problem to be sure they understand it, and then clarifies the outcome to the problem that the client would rather experience. A traditional coach will ask a client how they would like to move toward their goal by creating a series of steps. For each step, the coach will ask for a commitment from the client to complete each of those steps. And following the commitment to take the required steps, a timeline is created and specific tasks are assigned, and the expectation is that you, the client, will keep your word and fulfill all of those required steps. For some people, that style of coaching works great, and for others, not so much. Now, I have a personal experience with this approach to coaching, and in no way am I saying that all coaches use this approach. There are many coaches who are very good at what they do and have very successful clients. Now, my personal experience with this style of coaching occurred with a productivity coach who came to a company I worked for about a decade ago. The company offered to pay for half of the productivity coach's fees should any of those employees choose to work with him. And I was on a productivity-based bonus, so there was definitely an incentive for me to work more effectively. So a few of us chose to give the guy a try. Together, the coach and I developed a plan. It was actually really cool. He found out what I'd like to experience instead of the little frustrations that had been slowing down my productivity. And we created a series of tasks necessary to complete my objectives, and we set a timeline for these tasks, and I made the commitment to some fairly lofty goals that I'd actually never achieved before. And this was exciting though. I thought that, now that I've got a set of tasks and a timeline, I should be able to easily achieve these goals. And after the first week ended, I had actually stayed on track. I was impressed. The second week came around and I was a little bit behind on some of those goals. And the third week, when it arrived, I was really behind. At the end of the month, I was scheduled to speak with the productivity coach again, and in just 3 weeks, I'd already fallen short on my goals. When we spoke on the phone, he wasn't too impressed. And while we were talking, I was making all kinds of pictures in my mind of the task sheet and the timeline and how I felt annoyed looking at it, and it just seemed like another obstacle in my path, and tracking everything seemed like just one more step that was burdening me. And the productivity coach said, "But you gave me your commitment that you do each of these tasks. You've got to catch up on the tasks or you're going to fall even further behind." At that point, he was starting to sound a lot like Charlie Brown's school teacher, and I knew that I hadn't kept my commitments and I wanted him to help me out. And the reason why I hadn't kept my commitments seemed to be, to me at least, the same reason why my productivity wasn't getting me the bonuses that I wanted. There were too many interruptions happening, and when I did get a spare minute, the last thing I had energy to do or want to do was follow up on that office minutia. So the coach and I set some new goals that were less lofty, and similarly at the end of the next month, I was behind again. Once again, I could sense the coach was frustrated with me. He said, "What do you want me to do? You committed to these tasks, but you haven't followed through. How can I motivate you? You're wasting a lot of money unless you can start making these things happen." And as he was talking, I was agreeing. I was wasting my money on that guy, and I was feeling bad about doing it too. He hadn't asked me what was preventing me from completing the tasks, and he had no way of knowing that I was experiencing a sinking feeling in my stomach that caused me to feel stuck as soon as I saw my task list. The timeline that we created was tacked up above my press board, right up above the place where I kept that task list, and he didn't know the office minutia that would earn me the bonus always ended up on the bottom of my task list of things to do at the end of the day. When I thought about that list in my mind, it all seemed larger than life and overwhelming. Now all he had to work with was my word, my commitment. But he had no clue as to how I was experiencing my job because he didn't know what questions to ask. And in his defense, I didn't know either at the time. Since then, I've learned a lot about the power of submodalities. the ways that our internal representation of the world around us causes us to experience events, and I'll share more about submodalities in another video. Had that coach known that changing the size of the task list in my mind and connecting it to feelings of motivation and empowerment would have earned me those bonuses, and he probably would have helped millions by now. Like I said before, it's often what we're not paying attention to or unaware of that is having the greatest effect upon our lives. Anybody can create a to-do list and try to obligate somebody to checking those things off that list, but not everybody has developed the skills it takes to understand why someone isn't experiencing the change they want to experience. When approached from this perspective, coaching becomes non-linear. It has less to do with setting timelines and achieving goals. Rather, I believe that when the barriers to motivation are identified and replaced with beneficial resources, then there's no need for task setting. A person will be motivated internally to move toward what it is that they want to achieve. So why not find out for yourself how this could work? Take some time, check out the rest of my videos on my website, www.michaeljemery.com, and if you find that my coaching services would be of great value to you, then by all means, get in touch with me. I'm here to help. Be amazing.